the function, Chairman of Dempo Charities Trust, Shri Srinivas Dempo, Trustee, Dempo Charities Trust, Madam Pallavi Dempo, Principal, Professor Vrinda Borkar, Vice Principal, Madam Manjari Parve, officials from Goa University and the Directorate of Higher Education, esteemed members of the Dempo family and the Dempo House, members of the Governing Board, retired members of faculty who have joined us today, colleagues from sister institutions of Dempo Charities Trust, principals and faculty members from institutions across Goa, faculty members from our institution, members of the administrative staff, students, members of the press, and members of the audience. We, DCT's Dempo College of Arts and Science, extend a very warm welcome to you all for the closing ceremony of Vasantrao Dempo Time and Jubilee Lecture Series, where ideas converged. Basking in the glory of the sun and sea, illuminating pathways, empowering the future of generations of students for so many years, Dempo College completes 60 glorious years of establishment. To mark this feat, we have had erudite personalities throughout the year addressing us, enlightening audiences and fortifying dreams of young visionaries throughout. Today, we gather here to mark the closing ceremony of this event, that is Vasantrao Dempo Time and Jubilee Lecture Series, where ideas converge, with the keynote address of our esteemed chief guest, Shri Jayant Sinha, who has joined us through the virtual platform today. To begin this evening with notes of positivity and peace, I invite our student achiever, Ms. Veda Desai, to present the Ganesh Vandana. Veda.
Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samprabha Nirvignam Kurumi Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvada Nirvignam Kurumi Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvada Sarvakarishu Sarvada Sarvakarishu Sarvada Adipujjam Ganadhyaksham Umaputra Vinayakam Mangalam Paramarupam Shri Ganesha Namamyaham Mangalam Paramarupam Shri Ganesha Namamyaham Shri Ganesha Namamyaham Gajanana Bhutanganadi Sevita Kapitya Jambu Phalachara Bhakshanam Gajanana Bhutanganadi Sevita Kapitya Jambu Phalachara Bhakshanam Umasuta Shoka Vinashakarakam Namami Vigneshwara Pada Pankajam Namami Vigneshwara Pada Pankajam Namami Vigneshwara Pada Pankajam.
Thank you, Veda, for having lent an auspicious opening to this event. Under the patronage of the Dempo family, Madam Pallavi and Shri Srinivas Dempo, Dempo College has grown to be an institution of distinction in myriad ways. May I request Chairman, Dempo Charities Trust, Shri Srinivas Dempo, to make his presidential remarks on this momentous occasion. I request Madam Principal, Professor Vrinda Borkar, to kindly escort Sir to the podium.
one and all. Most respected chief guest and keynote speaker of this valedictory function of 60 years of Dempo College of Arts and Science, my friend Sri Jayant Sinha ji, honorable members of the governing board, honorable colleagues from the trust, Principal Dr. Vrinda Borkar, Mr. Rajesh Patikar, who is the administrator of the Dempo Charities Trust, and Vice Principal Manjari Parvi. So also I see many in the audience who have contributed immensely to the development of this institution. In the interest of time, I cannot name everyone individually. There are retired faculty members, there are present faculty members, there are retired administrative staff, there are retired principals, there are many others who have contributed, as I said, to this very challenging journey of the last 6 decades. And it is because of you. Dempo College of Arts and Science was established in 1962. You remember those times, many of you were born then, I was not. But this was in response to the urgent educational requirements of the newly liberated Goa. Many of our ancestors had to go away to places like Belgaum and Mumbai to pursue higher education. Thus was born Goa Education Society under the able leadership of my grandfather, late Vasantrao Dempo, backed formidably by his brother, late Vasantrao, and also by our Honorable First Chief Minister of Goa, late Bhau Sahib Bandodkar, and there are many others. Again, in the interest of time, I would not name everyone. And then came, this eventually passed on to Dempo Charities Trust. And for the last 6 decades, as I said, with the blessings of the people of Goa, we have been able to serve the Goan society, particularly the less privileged members of the society who cannot afford to go far away for education. And thanks to the various governments during this last 6 decades of the government of Goa, with their solid backing and support, we have been able to not only survive in this very challenging environment, but also thrive and grow the institution. As I said, over the past 60 years, this college has been a cradle for higher education to those who aspire to make a dream and living. And I'm very humbled and at the same time proud to say that many of our alumni have distinguished themselves not only at the local level, but also at the national and international level, across all walks of life in various streams and sectors of the economy. Today, as we stand and take a look and try and evaluate at the landmark of 60 years and deliberate on the future strategies of the college, I think we need to be conscious of the emerging discourses on higher education. Higher education is changing, and it's changing very, very fast. Especially the focus now with the new national education policy, which is very, very futuristic, which is very strong in intent, which focuses on multidisciplinary education, as I said, where there will be no rigid separations between faculties of arts and sciences. From the time the first NEP was drafted in 48 till the present times, our policymakers have always emphasized and promoted the concept of holistic education, and the new NEP is just further strengthening this. The objective is to provide education, not just for living, but for life. To provide not just formal education, based education, but to expand the horizons, promote understanding of various local, regional, national and international issues, and in the process, develop students that are worthy and empathetic citizens who will contribute to the betterment of society. And I hope that Dempo College has lived to this aspiration so far. And as I said, we have produced so many intelligent people who are leading, whether it's in politics, whether it's in medicine, whether it's in engineering, whether it's in business, you can name it. I was part of one of the NAC process where, a union minister was sitting with us as an ex-student, the chief minister was sitting with us as an ex-student of Dempo College. And many of you, just now I met two principals who said that they were both part of Dempo College and as students of Dempo College. So this makes us very, very happy that the aspirations of the founders have been met. No education will be holistic in itself unless it explicitly sensitizes our students to the highly emotive issue of environment and sustainability. The serious crisis of global warming caused by the unchecked CO2 emission has already prompted the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that is IPCC, to call for concerted global effort to reduce carbon emissions if we were to prevent the fallout of the projected global warming by almost 1.5 degrees. The concept of sustainability, development of sustainable models of development, and in that concept, what we are going to discuss today about the concept of net zero emissions by the world by 2050, many parts of the world, and India by 2070, is a topic that holds relevance for all of us. And it's our privilege that we have a technocrat, a thought leader, an absolute financial genius, and who has a passion for sustainable development to articulate on this highly educative topic. I warmly welcome Honorable Member of Parliament who represents the Hazaribagh constituency, Mr. Jayant Sinha, to be delivering this very, very important lecture on this very important topic. We would have been doubly happy if Mr. Sinha was present today in action, but there were situations beyond his control. He did call me this morning and extended his regrets and apologies to all of you that he could not be here in person. But I'm sure, I have seen him speak on this topic earlier. I'm sure that all of you all will be really enlightened. He is a member of parliament who piloted or who put this in the private member's bill. And he speaks with so much of passion. The kind of laudable efforts that he's taken to study on this topic is highly, highly appreciated. So once again, a warm welcome to you on behalf of Dempo Charities Trust, on behalf of Dempo College. And please continue to support us the way you've supported us. It's only because of the people of Goa that this institution has prospered. Thank you.
Words, sir. Your emphasis on NEP and its implementation to support sustainability is the need of the hour and one of the most important takeaways from your remarks. We have now arrived at the vital segment of this evening. I take this opportunity to present to you the illustrious personality of today's function, Chief Guest and Keynote Speaker, Honorable Member of Parliament, Shri Jayant Sinha. Shri Jayant Sinha is the Chairperson of the Standing Committee on Finance, Parliament of India, Lok Sabha Member of Parliament from Hazaribagh, Jharkhand. Mr. Sinha is a second-term Member of Parliament from Jharkhand. Mr. Sinha won his Lok Sabha elections in 2014 and 2019 with record margins. As Chairperson of the Standing Committee on Finance, Mr. Sinha leads the 31-member parliamentary panel and oversees the Ministries of Finance, Corporate Affairs, Statistics and Program Implementation, and the Niti Aayog, the government planning agency. In addition, the panel has parliamentary responsibility for the Reserve Bank of India, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board, and the Insurance and Pension Regulatory Authorities. Mr. Sinha is very active in Parliament, having opened the debate on India's annual budget on multiple occasions, as well as by introducing important private member bills. In 2021 budget session, he introduced the Climate Change Net Zero Carbon Private Member Bill 2021. Previously, Mr. Sinha served on India's Council of Ministers from 2014 to 2019. First as the Minister of State for Finance and then as the Minister of State for Civil Aviation. During his time as a minister, Mr. Sinha gained wide recognition as an innovative and results-oriented policymaker with singular successes ranging from piloting the legislation that brought in India's game-changing bankruptcy code to establishing India's sovereign wealth fund, the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, to privatizing multiple airports under an entirely new regulatory framework. As Aviation Minister, Mr. Sinha was instrumental in upgrading safety and security across India's fast-growing aviation system. He launched the UDAN Regional Connectivity Scheme, which expanded the number of operational airports in India by 50% in just 3 years. Mr. Sinha also implemented several major digital initiatives such as the Digital Sky Drone Policy and the DigiYatra Digital Traveller Program. Prior to his career in public service, Mr. Sinha was partner at Omidyar Network and the managing director of Omidyar Network in India Advisors, where he led overall investment strategies and operations in India from 2009 to 2013. At Omidyar, Mr. Sinha made venture capital investments in a variety of companies, including 2 unicorns, Quikr and Daily Hunt. Before joining Omidyar Network, Mr. Sinha was managing director at Courage Capital Management, where he led global technology and India-related investing for a $1 billion global special situations hedge fund. Mr. Sinha joined Courage Capital in 2006 after 12 years with McKinsey & Company, where he was a partner in Boston and Delhi offices and co-led the global software and services practice. As a global thought leader, Mr. Sinha has been published in the Financial Times, the Times of India, Economic Times, Indian Express, Business Standard, Harvard Business Review, and the McKinsey Quarterly. He has pioneered new thinking on platform-based businesses, innovation-driven entrepreneurship, climate change, and sustainable development. Mr. Sinha's Getting to the Green Frontier development model is gaining broad acceptance as the net zero pathway for India in the 21st century. Mr. Sinha has an MBA with distinction from the Harvard Business School and MS in Energy Management and Policy from University of Pennsylvania, and has a BTech with distinction and has been awarded Distinguished Alumni Award from IIT Delhi in 2015. We are indeed honored to have a persona of his stature with us today. May I now request Honorable Member of Parliament Shri Jayant Sinha to kindly address the gathering through the virtual mode and share his thoughts on getting to the green frontier, a net zero development model for India. Sir, we request you to kindly take over for your lecture.
Thank you very much for that extensive and very kind introduction. Thank you also to my good friend Shri Srinivas Dempo for his kind words. And I must say I'm very, very pleased to be with all of you at the Diamond Jubilee celebrations of Dempo College of Arts and Science. Srinivas ji was just outlining all the very distinguished alumni that have come from this college and its invaluable contributions to education in Goa. And I'm very honored and privileged that you have given me an opportunity to speak to you at such an important event. I must also apologize that I cannot be with you all in person. I was absolutely planning to do so, and in fact I had booked my tickets and was leaving for the airport this afternoon when I was informed by my parliamentary colleagues that a bill that I was going to open for the Bharatiya Janata Party was slated for this afternoon, and that the goal was to be able to pass this bill. It is a very important bill. It's a bill that safeguards India's interests in the Antarctic. We are already signatory to many, many important treaties that are linked to the Antarctica continent, but we have not yet passed a bill in Parliament that would safeguard those treaty obligations that we had and would put in place a regime for the safe and scientific usage of the Antarctic and its resources, which is why it was important, the party felt, to actually pass this bill and get it done, and we were in fact successful in doing so, and now this bill has been passed. There is a double connection to Goa associated with this bill. First, all of the scientific missions that go to the Antarctic go from Goa. I believe there's a Marine Institute in Goa, which essentially houses all the scientific staff and all of the research that is undertaken in this southernmost continent of the planet. So there is that Goa connection. And then secondly, the goal of the scientific research that we're doing in the Antarctic is to understand the planet's climate and what's happening to the ice sheet in the Antarctic, which is 62% of the world's fresh water. And obviously, if indeed that ice sheet starts to melt, we will see a rise in sea levels. We will see coastal flooding. That will, of course, affect Goa as well. So you will pardon me for not being with you in Goa this evening, but I hope you'll also feel that we were doing important national service by passing this very important bill, which we have committed to do. Doing so at the various different international conventions that have happened for the Antarctic continent. So once again, my deepest apologies that I couldn't be there in person, but I'm very privileged that you've chosen to give this lecture. As Srinivasji was saying, I have been working for several years on issues associated with climate change. At the same time, I have also been working on how India should develop. How should we secure our future in terms of a more prosperous, more sustainable growth trajectory for India? When we think about how we as a country should follow a development model, we absolutely have no choice but to take into account what is happening with climate change as well. So I do have a presentation. Hopefully we can put it up in front of you, and I can share with you my thoughts on how we can get to the green frontier. And this green frontier idea, friends, is an idea that really pulls together what we need to do in terms of development, in terms of growth and job creation, as well as the sustainability issues that we have. I also, before I go into this presentation, want to recognize that we have the principal of the College of Arts and Sciences in the audience. We have faculty members, I'm sure we have students, and other distinguished members in the audience. And I also want to convey my regards and respect to all of you. So let's look at how we can actually get to the green frontier and what that means for India's development. But first, we need to understand how economists have actually thought about development itself. Next page. So generally, the way economists think about development is under the concept of farm to factory. And so here is a picture of a country that has very successfully developed itself, become a middle-income country over the last 30 or 40 years, and that's of course China. Here we have some Chinese people that are working in a paddy field, and of course the transition that has happened in China is from farm to factory. And many people in China who are farmers are now working in factories, and the two vectors that have driven this development have been industrialization, putting people in factories, taking them out of agriculture, and urbanization, where people have come out of agriculture and come into very large cities where their productivity has gone up dramatically. So the way an economist will describe development is to say that it's farm to factory, it's driven by industrialization and urbanization. Next page. The way to look at it in a somewhat more abstract sense is to really understand that when we are developing, when we are going from farm forward, we really are dealing with, on the one hand, the planet and its state of natural resources, what its carrying capacity is, and of course the requirements that people have, which is to obviously create jobs, to increase wealth, and therefore to increase GDP. And the vector, the real driver of all of this is technology. As our technology improves, we start to produce more and more, and this is really the journey that development takes us on. Next page. And you can see this in terms of what's called the production frontier. We have what we are producing at the farm. As we industrialize, as we urbanize, as we apply and use new technology, we get from farm to factory, and in the factory, by pushing out the production frontiers, we are able to produce more, people become more productive. And therefore, the amount of economic value you create in a farm is massively enhanced when you go work in a factory setting. Instead of producing output of 1 or 2 lakhs a year, 2 or 3 lakhs a year, you're now producing output of 5 or 10 lakhs a year. So your productivity, your output has gone up dramatically. So this is the theory. This is what economists will tell you about development as we have seen it, the way China has developed, the way the US has developed, the way Western Europe has developed. And this is the farm to factory development model. Next page. Of course, the problem is the theory is very different from reality when it comes to India. Instead of the arrow pointing upwards and resulting in both improvements to the planet's carrying capacity and to what people want, which is jobs and wealth and so on, the trajectory that we are on actually is a trajectory that, while it improves GDP, actually is reducing the planet's carrying capacity. And there are a number of very negative impacts that are starting to develop. First, are pandemics themselves. Part of the reason why we have the coronavirus and before that SARS and MERS and all these other viruses like AIDS as well is because we are having spillovers from animals into human beings. And these viruses that spill over from animals to human beings are called zoonotic viruses. Zoonotic viruses. They come from animals, whether it's bats or whether it's chimpanzees and so on. And these viruses are viruses to which our bodies don't have any immunity, and therefore we have these pandemics because of this encroachment that's beginning to happen on natural habitats and the destruction of forests and other areas of natural habitats. So pandemics themselves are a function of us intruding upon natural habitats and reducing the planet's carrying capacity. Similarly, we are dealing with water shortages, congestion, and so on. But the two most important things that make this pathway that we are on, the farm to factory pathway that we are on, unsustainable, are number one, climate change, and that's related to carbon emissions, which I will describe in detail. And number two, insufficient job creation. Because as we move towards factories, these factories are becoming more automated, more machine and capital intensive, and they're just simply not creating enough jobs to employ the young people that India has today. So the sustainableness of this trajectory is actually not adding up, and we are moving in a way, in a development pathway that doesn't work very well for India. Next page. So let's look first at climate change and the sustainability issues associated with climate change. So typically, in the past we've had carbon parts per million in the atmosphere that have been well below 300 parts per million. But what has happened in the last few years that we have, because we are pumping all this carbon into the atmosphere from coal-fired power plants, from tailpipe emissions of electric and diesel vehicles, from diesel generators, from all these different sources of carbon, as well as, by the way, from livestock, which produce methane, which is a very, very powerful greenhouse gas, which creates even more problems. We have pushed carbon into the atmosphere, and as a result of that, we now have 421 parts per million in the atmosphere, which is higher than it has been for 250,000 years. Next page. The net result of it is, because of this carbon and other greenhouse gases like methane, we have created sort of a blanket around the earth. So just like you put on a blanket when you're cold and it traps your heat and it keeps you warm, in the same way the carbon in the atmosphere is like a blanket around the earth, and as a result of that, the earth has been warming up. Between 1850, which is roughly when industrialization started, till 1950, global average mean temperatures rose by 0.5 degrees centigrade. Most of the predictions are that by 2030, we will cross 1.5 degrees centigrade in warming. Now here's the really scary part, friends. We've had 1.1 to 1.2 degrees centigrade warming so far. Again, I repeat, in the last 200 years, we've had 1.1 to 1.2 degrees centigrade of warming. We have put, as I said, 421 carbon parts per million into the atmosphere. As a result of that, the Earth is going to continue to warm until we take the carbon out of the atmosphere, and that's almost impossible to do. The Earth is going to warm. Now, the scientists are telling us that the warming is going to be anywhere between 1.4, which is the lower bound, so that temperatures may actually go down perhaps, but much more likely they're going to rise, and they could rise up to 4.4 degrees centigrade. Now, I'm sure you're reading the newspapers. You know that it's 40 degrees centigrade in the UK, that Europe is going through a heat wave. China has just gone through a heat wave. Japan has gone through a heat wave. The US is going through a heat wave. All of this is happening, friends, simply because temperatures have risen by 1.1 degrees centigrade. Imagine what happens when temperatures rise another 1.5 to 2 degrees centigrade in 80 years. This has happened over 200 years. What people are talking about is that it will rise much more quickly in the next 80 years. Next page. And the current scenarios, a lot of the scientific work that has happened has shown that on current course and speed, given the policies that countries are following, we are likely to warm the Earth by 2100 by between 2.7 to 3.1 degrees centigrade. So we've done 1.1 so far. We are going to go to 2.7, let's say. That means another 1.5 degrees centigrade warming in the next 80 years. That's what's going to happen given current policies. Next page. So the net result of that is that immediately we will start to see many more extreme weather events. And when we say extreme weather events, we mean droughts, we mean heat waves, we mean cyclones. The frequency of these extreme weather events, events that used to happen once in 30 years, 50 years, is gone up 30 times. So what was happening once in a century is now going to happen once in every 3 years. And that is really, really scary, really, really damaging. Next page. We saw one such extreme weather event in India in April and May. During this time, temperatures were much higher than they usually are in April and May. And in northern India, we had the highest recorded average temperatures for April and May in northern India. And as you can see from this picture, temperatures came up. Of course, temperatures do cross 40s in June and so on. But those temperatures crossed 40s very early in the season. And we had real problems with electricity requirements, and essentially we had huge brownouts and blackouts in many states, including my own home state of Jharkhand, because we were simply not equipped to be able to meet the electricity load during this heat wave. And by the way, this is what is being experienced around the world as these heat waves strike. Next page. The other aspect of it, which is what the bill today, the Antarctic bill, relates to, is coastal flooding. We are going to see somewhere between 0.5 to 0.8 meters rise in sea levels based on current projections by 2100. And what that means for India is that many of our coastal areas are going to get flooded. So we have obviously real challenges for Mumbai, Kochi, in the Sundarbans. Potentially there will be areas in Goa as well that are low-lying areas that are going to get flooded because sea levels are going to rise by 0.5 to 0.8 meters. But what's even more scary about all of this is that, remember, extreme events are also going to go up in frequency. And so we're going to get massive cyclones that we never used to have in the Arabian Sea. These massive cyclones are going to come bearing down. Sea levels will have already gone up 0.5 meters. And the storm surges from these cyclones are going to be 2 meters, 3 meters. And it's the combination of storm surges and a higher sea level that will really result in very destructive flooding in low-lying areas, in coastal areas as well. So in India, we're going to have to deal with coastal flooding in a very serious way. We've got a very long coastline. We've got very many major cities in these coastal areas that are going to have to deal with this flooding. And I spoke about this extensively in Parliament today as well. What's even more unfortunate is that we have many islands, so for example the Maldives, Seychelles, Lakshadweep, that if sea levels rise by 0.5 meters, 0.8 meters, are going to be inundated. Basically, they'll be covered by water. And of course, if there's a cyclone or such type of weather patterns, it will be almost impossible to be in these low-lying island areas. Plus, of course, you know that the sea temperatures are rising as well, which is also destroying corals. So if you go to the Maldives now, and you go and you look at the coral reefs, you'll find that they're being bleached white because temperatures have gone up as well. So the oceans are changing, and they're changing dramatically because of temperature rise. Next page. The other area that's going to be impacted very significantly because of climate risks is agriculture. Some 20% of our rural districts are at very high risk of climate change, which is of course due to severe heat stress and extreme rainfall. Already our wheat production this year, because of the high temperatures in April, May in northern India, has been affected. Wheat harvests are down some 6 to 10% around the country because of the heat wave that we had. Increasingly, as temperatures go up and drought happens and we have extreme events, we are going to see agricultural production at risk, and we have agricultural scientists that are predicting that crop harvests will drop somewhere between 5 to 20%. Next page. So all of this tells you that the development trajectory that we're on, the farm-to-factory development model that economists talk about, is not sustainable. And in fact, the challenge that we have in India is even more significant. So people recognize that we need to address climate change. And as a result of that, most of the major countries in the world have committed themselves, including China, to going to net zero. Actually going to net zero, most of the OECD developed countries are going to do it by 2050. China is going to do it by 2060. These are announcements. And so we will see global emissions, which are about 55 billion tons of carbon equivalent, coming down very, very rapidly to 2050. Unfortunately, the business as usual case for India and the current policies, our carbon emissions are going to continue. They are at 3.5 billion tons right now. The current business as usual scenario shows that they will get to 7 billion tons. So that makes it a pretty unsustainable situation for India, which is the world is going to net zero on the one hand. On the other hand, we cannot be increasing carbon emissions at the rate that we are and going from 3.5 billion tons to 7 billion tons and become 30 to 40% of the world's global carbon emissions. So this trajectory we are on right now is not tenable, it's not sustainable because of the dynamics of carbon emissions that we're dealing with right now. Next page. And so even as we deal with these issues of climate change and carbon emissions, which simply are not sustainable for India right now, we have another major issue that we have to deal with on the farm-to-factory development model, and that is on job creation. So Bhola Mehto is one of my voters in Tati Jharia block in Hazaribagh. If I were to ask Bhola Mehto, what is the kind of job that you want? He's going to tell me, sir, मुझे कोई construction site पे नौकरी नहीं चाहिए. मैं ढाबे में भी नहीं काम करना चाहता. अगर मुझे नौकरी चाहिए तो मुझे चाहिए कोई सरकारी नौकरी चाहिए या मुझे कहीं अच्छी वाइट कॉलर की जॉब दीजिए जिसमें मैं कंप्यूटर पे काम कर सकूं. So when you ask people in India what are the kinds of jobs you want, they will tell you they don't want informal jobs, they want high quality formal jobs. Let's look at that picture. Next page. Unfortunately, we just are not creating sufficient number of high quality jobs. So today, out of our billion strong workforce between the ages of 15 to 64, only about 400 million, that is, 500 million out of the billion strong workforce, only about 500 million, which is about 50% labor force participation, which has, by the way, come down after COVID. We have labor force participation of, around 50% or even perhaps lower. Of that, the vast majority of people are in the informal sector. So they don't actually get a paycheck. The number of people who actually get a monthly, well-specified and regular paycheck is only about 100 million, 10 crores. And of those, 65 million are in the private sector and 35 million are in the government sector. So 65 million people, which lines up with about 6 crore people who are taxpayers in India. So 65 million people in the private sector are really holding up our workforce and holding up India's economy. And of course, because we have a very young workforce, we are going to have lots and lots of people joining us over the next 15 to 20 years. So we're expecting another 250 million people to join the workforce. And we have to find high quality jobs for them, for the Bhola members of the world. Next page. But what are the choices we can offer Bhola Mehto? We cannot offer Bhola Mehto a good high quality job in an IT services company in Goa or in Bangalore. What Bhola Mehto has as a job opportunity is to go work in a factory kind of job, driving an auto rickshaw, let's say, in Mumbai, making 15,000 rupees a month. So those are the kinds of jobs that he has available to him, and those are not the jobs that he wants. Next page. And as I said, the problem with this job of becoming an auto rickshaw driver, driving a petrol auto rickshaw, is that this is also unsustainable as far as India is concerned. Not only is it not a good job, it really is a problem for us in terms of carbon emissions, in terms of air pollution, and so on. So we really need to rethink our development model. This farm to factory type development model simply doesn't look like it's the way that India should develop in the future. Next page. We need to think differently about development in India. And the way we need to think differently, instead of putting Bhola Mehto into a brown job, making 15,000 rupees a month, and let's not forget that he's making 7,000 rupees a month in his farm anyway in Dakicharia. We need to give him a green job, a job that decarbonizes, a job that's a formal job, a job where he can be sure of a paycheck. And so what if he had Bhola Mehto, instead of driving a petrol auto rickshaw, what if he was driving an electric cab? And by driving an electric cab and using payment systems, using digital dispatch and so on, we can give him a much better, higher quality job than he would get if he was pursuing sort of the farm to factory type job. So we really need to focus on creating these green jobs. Next page. And the way to think about it again, visually, is to recognize that we should get to the green frontier. Rather than pursuing a farm to factory development model that is not sustainable, that's leading to rising emissions, it's not creating sufficient jobs, it's not creating enough growth, and it's also resulting in this chaotic urbanization that we see around us. Can we pursue a different development model, a green frontier development model, where we head towards net zero by following a net zero pathway, where we increase both the wealth and jobs available to people and improve the planet's carrying capacity. And that's why we move diagonally upwards, we move to the green frontier, and that is what I call the green frontier development model, with sustainable urbanization, robust economic growth, and net zero emissions. This is the type of development model that we should be following. Next page. Now the green frontier development model, as I call it, embeds decarbonization in development. So I say that decarbonization should be development. So how do we do that? Well, we've done a lot of modeling studies over the last 2-3 years to actually understand what India's development trajectory should be. Many of these models did not exist, and I myself have a background in modeling and operations research. I am a chemical engineer by training, and I have spent a lot of my professional life working with very large data sets, very big analytical models. So this was something that I knew how to do, and I worked with some of the world's leading modeling groups at Stanford, at MIT, at Tufts, with Cambridge Econometrics in the UK, to start to examine what a net zero development model would look like. What would this green frontier development model look like? And what I found was that there are 4 major things we have to do. Number 1, we have to switch our electricity system entirely to renewables. Number 2, we have to go to electric vehicles as quickly as we can. Number 3, there are these disruptive green businesses in green hydrogen and biofuels and in distributed energy that we need to scale up as quickly as possible. And we need to link into a global carbon trading system so we get the benefit of carbon credits and so on. These are the 4 pillars of a green frontier development model. And that's the development model that will create jobs and enable us to reduce emissions and get to net zero. Next page. And this, in fact, is what we have to offer to the people of India, to Bhola Mehto. Instead of putting Bhola Mehto into a petrol auto rickshaw and just enabling him to earn 15,000 rupees a month, what if we make him a driver in an electric cab, making 30,000 rupees a month and having a steady paycheck and a good high quality job? But we need to put him into these green frontier industries and take him even beyond that. Next page. Now you may well ask, am I just making this up? I mean, is this just imagination? No, it's not, friends. This is something that's happening even today, and we need to massively scale it up and massively invest behind it. There is a whole range of green frontier industries. And when I talk about putting Bhola Mehto on an electric cab, it's happening now, today, with a company called Blue Smart. I don't know if any of you have been to Delhi and seen the Blue Smart cabs, but these are all electric cabs, and they pay their drivers 22,000 rupees of salary plus a set of benefits that add up to the 30,000 rupees a month. And there's a range of other companies: Idea Forge, a drone company; NutriFresh, a hydroponics company; Chai Point, which is a net zero restaurant company; Ether, making electric two-wheelers; Electric Pay, that's putting together a charging network for electric two-wheelers and four-wheelers; Ola, of course, making electric two-wheelers. So we've got a whole range of green frontier industries that are developing very quickly, and they're combining, as I say, digital plus green, and that's the green frontier. Digital plus green gets us to the green frontier. Next page. And this is vitally important. As I said, India's baseline scenario, the business as usual scenario, and this, by the way, is just showing carbon emissions. It's not greenhouse gases, so it's not showing methane. But what this is showing you that under the business as usual scenario, we are headed to 5.8 billion tons of carbon alone, 7 billion tons of greenhouse gas equivalents. So unless we bend the curve, and the Honorable Prime Minister has said that we need to go to net zero by 2070, but to go to net zero by 2070, we have to bend the curve in this decade. And we have to start to make some very important changes to our economy if we are going to bend the curve and get to net zero even by 2070. And this relates to things like coal-fired power production, it includes electric vehicles, it includes what we do with green hydrogen and so on. And it has to happen now at a massive, massive scale. The good news, friends, is that if we do this, if we get onto this net zero 2070 curve, a lot of good things happen. The most important headline, and the one takeaway from today, I hope you will have, the one takeaway from today, net zero is net positive for India. Net zero, the net zero development model is net positive for India. We are better off if we pursue the green frontier development model. Next page, let me show you that. So as I said, we have been doing this very detailed modeling with some of the top modeling groups around the planet, and consistently they're showing the same results. And this is based on models that didn't exist over the last 2 years. We've built these models. Number one, in terms of GDP. So GDP actually goes up if we pursue the net zero development model, and you can see the percentage change in GDP relative to the baseline scenario here. Next page. Net zero is net positive when we look at jobs as well. So again, in the business as usual case, this is the number of people employed. When we go to the net zero by 2070, you'll see the number of people employed is much, much higher in the case where we have the net zero case, because green jobs are getting created. Next page. This is the air pollution chart. Now, when I show this chart, many people tell me, forget about GDP, forget about jobs, show this chart first. Fossil fuels are killing us right now. I'm sorry to be blunt about it, but fossil fuels are killing us right now. There have been a number of medical studies, most notably in the Lancet, that have shown that fossil fuels and air pollution is killing between 1 million to 2 million people a year in India. By way of comparison, COVID killed some 500 to 600,000 people over 2 years. So the number of people dying every year from COVID during the pandemic was 250,000 people a year. Here we're talking about 1 million to 2 million people a year that are dying because of air pollution, and we can see it all around us. If we shut down fossil fuels, we are going to shut down many of these deaths that are happening because of air pollution in the 2.5 nanometer particles. Next page. And very importantly for national security, we are going to stop importing fossil fuels. Today, out of our $600 billion worth of imports, $230 billion of our imports are from fossil fuels, which includes natural gas, crude oil, and coal. If we move towards renewables, as you can see in this particular chart as well, we massively reduce the amount of fossil fuels that we are importing and dramatically improve our balance of payments. Next page. And so, as I said, we really need to pursue a net zero development model. If we can take Gola, perhaps instead of putting him in an electric cab, we can also link him up with a world-class supply chain, give him a green frontier job in a net zero food processing dairy company as well. That's another opportunity for him. Next page. And similarly for Geeta Oram, who also is in Patratu block in Hazaribagh, I can get her a green frontier job in hydroponics, for example, where she drives down the carbon emissions from agriculture. And there are companies like NutriFresh that are employing all women workforces to massively increase agricultural production through hydroponic farming. So those opportunities also exist. Next page. But here's the punchline, folks, and I'm coming to the end of my presentation. The fact is, we need trillions of dollars to pursue the net zero development model. The reason why GDP, jobs, all of these go up is because we are investing massively in net zero, in decarbonizing our economy, switching over our power systems, switching over our vehicles, moving to green cement, green steel, green fertilizers. But to do all of that, we are going to need trillions of dollars. If you were to do it by 2050, it would cost us $3 to $5 trillion. If we were to do it by 2070, it's going to cost us $2 to $3 trillion incremental to what we're investing. Which means that almost immediately, we have to start to invest an additional $100 billion more. Let me repeat that. Almost immediately, we have to start to invest $100 billion more into our economy to move towards decarbonization and net zero. And that is of a base, public and private, where we are investing between $300 to $400 billion. So we're investing $300 to $400 billion right now. We've got to increase it by $100 billion a year and sustain it over a long period of time so that in total we end up spending $2 to $3 trillion more in terms of investments. Next page. And that's very difficult to do in terms of domestic resource mobilization. So we actually need a global climate alliance where capital can come from the global north, come to India, and essentially drive our development as well. And to do that, a climate alliance that brings together the global north and the global south resolves what economists call the prisoner's dilemma is necessary. And that's really what we need to see if we can put together a global climate alliance. Next page. The Global Climate Alliance can build on existing net zero type approaches. There's the Paris Agreement, as you know, where people have made voluntary commitments to reducing carbon emissions. There's a very big European Union program. The IMF has proposed something. None of them is satisfactory right now in terms of the way it's set up. But if we can work on these existing models and if we can improve them and strengthen them, then potentially we can have a global climate alliance that essentially can take capital from the north and bring it to the south, but it has to be done in a market-driven approach. It has to be done through return-generating capital. Next page. And this is the way it has to happen. We need a market-driven approach. We need the World Bank, the IFC, other multilateral development banks to be substantially strengthened so that they can make this private sector market-driven approach happen. We need in India a full range of financing institutions, green institutions like NIF, National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, NABID, which is the National Development Agency, all of these to be strengthened and scaled up so we can do the green investments and really make these $300 billion of investments happen per year if we have to take the world and take the global south to net zero as well. Next page. And this is the opportunity for India, friends. I'll end here. The Honorable Prime Minister was able to put together the International Solar Alliance. The International Solar Alliance has been very, very successful. India is going to be assuming the G20 presidency in December. If we can create a global climate alliance to address India's development needs, to help India decarbonize, we can save India and we can save the world. This is really, really important because not only are we going to be able to pursue a much, much more sustainable development trajectory by following this net zero development path, but friends, we are also going to create more jobs for Bhola Mehto and Geeta Ram. Thank you so very much. And again, I'm really, really sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm happy to take a few questions if anyone has any questions, or if anyone would like to provide some comments or thoughts on this.
Thank you, sir. As sir has mentioned, if there are any questions or any clarifications that you would like to seek from sir, then please you can proceed to the podium and say your question or your doubt. Please.
Sir, thank you for that very enlightening talk. It was so educative and you made it so simple, such a complex issue. I think we've all got the message loud and clear. I had a question on the deadline of 2017. And this is more of a reflection. I know that we've committed to 2070 deadline. But should or could India have committed to the 2050 deadline? What were the challenges to commit to the 2050 deadline? Because you've done so much of work. Probably you could give us a feel for why 2070 and why not 2050.
It's a very difficult task to even hit net zero by 2070. To start, we have to basically figure out how we can switch away from coal-based power generation. Today, 75% of our energy comes from coal-fired power plants. For us to be able to shut down coal-fired power plants over the next 20 or 30 years is almost impossible. And therefore, signing up for a 2050 target is not something that will be possible for India. Even China, of course, has signed up to a 2060 target, not a 2070 target. The Honorable Prime Minister, of course, and very correctly, I might add, has also said that 2070 itself is not possible for India unless we can get trillions of dollars of investment flows. And of those trillions of dollars of investment flows, yes, the bulk of it, 70-80% of it is probably going to come from private sources as return-seeking capital, investments, and loans, but 20 to 25% has to come from the multilateral development banks as concessional finance. As you may remember, after World War II, when Europe lay in ruins, America put together the Marshall Plan. And through the Marshall Plan, which in today's dollars would be hundreds of billions of dollars worth, they were able to rebuild Europe and rebuild Japan through the Marshall Plan. And so many people have said that we need the equivalent of a Marshall Plan, a green Marshall Plan, where the global north, because ultimately the carbon that's in the atmosphere is there because of what the global north has done. So the global north needs to step up and it needs to mobilize trillions of dollars of capital to flow to the global south so that we can meet our decarbonization targets. And that's the idea of the Global Climate Alliance. In the Global Climate Alliance, members of the Global South will commit on a statutory basis, that means on a legally binding basis, that they're going to get to net zero by 2060, 2070. But in return, and you get what you pay for, in return, they will have to mobilize these trillions of dollars of capital and ensure that they come to the Global South. And again, I think we recognize it has to be a market-driven approach. That is the most productive way to invest in any case. But it has to be supported with sufficient concessional capital so that it is something that can get this whole virtuous growth cycle going. So that's really what the discussions are right now at the G7 level, the G20 level. We've been doing a lot of work on the research track associated with this. the India-EU research track 2 discussions, the India-UK track 2 discussions, the India-US track 2 discussions. In all of these track 2 discussions, I have the good fortune of being part of those. We have really been advancing these ideas on the research track. And really our goal now is to take it from track 2, track 1.5 to track 1, which is the government-to-government discussions, and really put it on the table during India's G20 presidency with the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister. If we can forge a global climate alliance between the global north and the global south, it will be absolutely historic and absolutely world-saving in that regard. But otherwise, there is no way to make this happen. 2050 just simply is not possible because the amount of capital that has to be employed, the power plants that have to be shut down, the electric vehicles that have to be adopted. It's just physically not possible to do it.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, sir. I am Shigar, former head geology department. Now, you have mentioned about the fossil fuel as an alarming factor, which is the maximum reason for causing the death. And the things which are associated with the fossil fuels are oil and natural gas and the coal deposits, which are today the main prime factor. So do you think, is it possible, feasible to get rid of oil and natural gas and the coal deposits? Is it possible? If it is possible, in what way it will be possible?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question very well, but my understanding of what you asked was, is it possible to reduce usage of...
Sir, I'll just make it clear. Your connection of fossil fuel is connected with oil and natural gas and coal deposits. Am I right? Am I right, sir?
Yes. Yes.
Now,
yes.
Can this be stopped totally? Just to stop the alarming number of deaths, as you have mentioned. That is the question.
Yes. So we are not going to be able to do it, sir. We are not going to be able to do it quickly. It's going to take us a long time to be able to transition away from fossil fuels. And of course, in a 2070 scenario, we're going to do it over the next 50 years. So 50 years is a long time to be able to do the transition, and I think that's how long it will take India. But as I showed in those charts, we have to start now. We have to start in the decade of the 2020. If we don't start in the next few years by not setting up any new coal plants, by quickly starting to move to electric vehicles, if we don't start that now, then the problem becomes even bigger down the road. So the sooner we can do it, remember, a lot of India's infrastructure, a lot of India's vehicles are still to be bought, still to be put in place. But the more we build those up, the more difficult it gets for us to be able to switch away. And there's this concept of stranded assets, which is the more we build up these assets and the quicker we have to remove them, the more we are going to strand these assets and end up with a big NPA problem as well. So the sooner we start, the better off we will be. But yes, we do have time to be able to plan this out and do it properly.
Yeah, sir, but contrary to this, on the other side, we have a rise in oil and natural gas. That is, every country is promoting oil and natural gas, and as well as the export of the coal deposits. So these are two contradictory things. So if you want to stop the number of the deaths, this should be on the decline, which is not seen. The decline, the graph is not going down, the graph is going up. Alarming. Am I right? What I said?
No, in the graph, sir, what we are showing is the number of premature deaths avoided, not premature deaths that happen. Okay. It's the deaths avoided. And so, as we go on net zero 2050, we obviously save more lives. If we go on 2070, we don't save as many lives, but we still save quite a lot of lives relative to the business as usual scenario.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your very scholarly discourse on getting to the green frontier, a net zero development model for India, Sri Sinha. You have definitely connected the sectors of economy, agriculture, job creation, decarbonization, and sustainability for us. You have remarkably laid emphasis on the use of renewable energy, electric vehicles, digital media, biofuels. The two significant lines that we take away from today are net zero is net positive for India, and India must bend the curve. Sir, we are very glad that you could join us today, and we will strive towards greener future and encourage our students to follow the same. With the permission of the chief guest, Honorable Member of Parliament, Shri Jayant Sinha, and the President of this function, Shri Srinivas Dempo, we will now proceed with the formal ceremony of this evening. I request Madam Principal and Madam Vice Principal to kindly escort the dignitaries to the dais. We have with us the President of the function, Shri Srinivas Dempo, Trustee, Dempo Charities Trust, Madam Pallavi Dempo, Administrator Sir, Shri Rajesh Patikar. We request you to kindly join us on the dais.
Dempo, our Principal of the College of Arts and Science, Srimati Vrinda Borkar, Administrator of DCT, Shri Rajesh Patikar, our Vice Principal, Srimati Manjari Barve, all our invitees present here, our teachers, past and present, our students, dear ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be present here amongst all of you all for the concluding event of the lecture series commemorating the Diamond Jubilee celebrations of the Dempo College of Arts and Science. In fact, as we know, the Dempo College has emerged as one of the leading education institutions in the state of Goa, and on this occasion, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation and gratitude to all the principals, students, past and present, of course our alumni, parents, and all the stakeholders of the college, whose commitment has contributed to the status this college has achieved. The college today stands on a very strong foundation of academic excellence, and like all other progressive institutions, we need to draw inspiration from the past, access the future, chart an ambition, and of course, planning of our college futuristically. And on its part, the Trust has taken initiatives to promote faculty development with special focus on academic collaborations, research publications, participation in international conferences, and of course, introduction to new programs. Given its thrust on multidisciplinary education, the new National Education Policy 2020 opens up possibilities for the introduction of new and contemporary programs of education at both undergraduate and the postgraduate levels. And I have no doubt that with the excellent human resources that this college has nurtured over time, the future of this college will be as outstanding as the past 60 years. I'd like to thank all the principals, past and present once again, teachers, students who have been associated with the college during the last 60 years for the way that they have nurtured and enriched this college. In fact, we've just heard an outstanding presentation by Shri Jayant Sinha ji, who was with us. And in fact, it was a real eye-opener, extremely informative, educated, a great take-home value for all of us here. And of course, it was a privilege to have him with us as our keynote speaker. And of course, a big thank you to him too, from all of us. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Sir, Chairman, Dempo Charities Trust, Dempo Group of Companies, Sri Srinivas Dempo, Madam Pallavi Dempo, our administrator, Sri Rajesh Matikar, Vice Principal Manjari Barve, retired staff of Dempo College, our staff, members of Dempo family, also students, staff from our college as well as other colleges. It is my pleasure to be here. Of course, since the program has got shifted, to welcome on behalf of Dempo College. We all know Dempo College of Arts and Science is the first institute of higher learning established 6 months after liberation of Goa on 20th June 1962, affiliated to University of Bombay. The college was envisioned by a number of educationists, industrialists, and philanthropists. Prominent among them were Vasantrao and Vasantrao Dempo, ex-Chief Minister of Goa D.B. Bandodkar, Rector Parikh, Satu Achyut Bharne, First Principal Dr. Y.V. Lavande. They were determined that Goans should no longer be deprived of higher learning for want of educational institutions. Their mission was affordable education to people belonging to all strata of society, with a hostel for students from villages and night classes for those who were employed at that time. Later in 1985, the college got affiliated to Goa University. Today, when the institution is celebrating 60 years of its establishment, I feel myself honored to commemorate the efforts taken by founders, subsequent chairmen, principals, and teachers who were part of this mission. Diamond Jubilee celebration of this college started with launching of Vasantrao Dempo Diamond Jubilee lecture series, and the first lecture was delivered by Honorable Governor of Goa, Shri P.S. Sridharan Pillai. It was followed by a second lecture by Padma Shri T.V. Mohandas Pai, former CFO and member of board Infosys Limited. Third lecture was by Dr. Shekhar Mande, Director General Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. Today we just heard the lecture, Getting to Green Frontier, a Net Zero Development Model for India by Honorable MP Shri Jayant Sinha, MBA from Harvard Business School, MS in Energy Management from University of Pennsylvania, and BTech from IIT Delhi. From his address we could make out all this, and for me it is only the takeaway that my next car should be an electric car. And I think from Dempo College, even this small contribution if we do, I think a little curve will bend maybe with 0.0001 down if all the teachers here and our retired staff take a pledge that let us have an electric car next. So that's what I could understand with all those graphs and many things. Okay, but of course it was an eye-opener for us that we should reduce our plastic, we should reduce the use of oil and fuels. And where are we heading towards? Though I will not be there in 2070, the plan is already there of 2070 done by this government. And I'm very happy that we had with us this personality who could explain it in a very, very simple way that everybody in the hall could understand what exactly we are heading towards. Besides this 4 lectures, our teachers are very enthusiastic and innovative. 2 international webinars titled Fostering Optimal Development and Well-being in Children and Adolescents, and also an international webinar on advances in material chemistry and applications. These were organized to commemorate the efforts of founders. We have invited renowned resource persons from different countries. 14 national and state level webinars were also organized this year, inviting resource persons from institutions of India. With its vision, learning, innovation, creation, inclusion, empowering society through holistic education, the college has carved a niche for itself as a center of excellence in teaching. Qualified, self-motivated, innovative staff is the strength of this institution. The college has always aimed at holistic development of students, making the next generation accept the global challenges. Thus, this institution is alma mater to leaders across the spectrum of societal positions in India, of course Goa, and abroad. The college in the last 60 years has upgraded the infrastructure and facilities. New disciplines like biotechnology, computer science, psychology, MSc Analytical Chemistry, and Research Center in Chemistry have been added. Globalization posed new challenges to education. Need was to develop ability of learner to assess, acquire, and utilize the knowledge and collaborate with others. For this, the Institute established academia-industry interface through MOU and collaborations. The college also signed MOUs with research organizations in India and abroad. International universities like INSEAD France, major university Japan. Organized visit of students and staff to Japan. Organized the international conferences, online symposiums inviting Nobel laureates, scientists from Japan, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Europe, USA as resource person. All activities aimed at global exposure of staff and students. We started value addition courses, skill development courses since 2000. We have at present designed 30 courses of 2 credits. The college has adopted a hybrid model, crossover learning, flipped classroom, along with conventional chalkboard. During the pandemic, teachers created videos of e-content, organized online, international, national symposiums, conferences, webinars, quizzes, competitions, and COVID awareness programs. And you can see today, we could very easily, within just message at 12 o'clock that he will be online, we could shift his lecture online, and it has gone seamlessly. I'm thankful to our IT support also for that. And the IT support has been helping us throughout the year during this COVID for these online lectures, and they were equally good as the students commented. Encompassing the social responsibility, the faculty are involved in extension services too. They contributed 75 hours of outreach during this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, creating awareness about societal issues, green initiatives. This is also a part of green initiative of ours. Mental health awareness, internship at old age homes, orphanages, school for special children, conducting workshops for school students and teachers. These are to name a few. In its constant pursuit of academic excellence and innovation in teaching and learning extension, the institution has achieved several landmark feats. It is accredited by NEC with A grade since 2010, 3 consecutive times. Awarded with College with Potential for Excellence, and recently we have received Star College Award by Department of Biotechnology, that is DBT, this year. It is ranked in NIRF amongst 200 colleges, 5 consecutive years in the band 151-200. Institutions Innovation Council, the college has received 3-star rating through Ministry of Education, New Delhi. In India Today survey, we are 100th among arts colleges, 103 among science colleges of India. The college is ISO certified, also received the Green Certification Level 3 for practicing and promoting environment-friendly initiatives. As we complete this 60th year, the college will have to revamp the educational system aligning with NEP 2020. There will be metamorphosis in education if new education policy is implemented in true spirit. The college will definitely meet all the challenges to accomplish our vision and mission and take lead in revolutionizing the educational system by implementing this transformational national education policy. Thank you. Thank you once again for joining us this auspicious day when we are completing 60 years of the establishment of this premier institute in the state of Goa. Thanks all.
May I call upon Shri A.G. Akshikar. Akshikar sir has been the former head of Department of Geology and a distinguished alumnus of this institution. May I call upon Mrs. Sucheta Halkar. Madam Halkar has been the former head, Department of Zoology. She has been instrumental in shaping the student cultural activities of our institution. May I call upon Shri S.U. Kamath. Sir Kamath has been the former head of Department of Mathematics. He has been an eminent resource person and visiting professor at various institutions. I call upon Dr. R.A. Dhume. Dr. Dhume has been the former head, Department of Chemistry, and has been an influential teacher. May I call upon Dr. Maria Isabel Santarita Vaz. Ma'am Vaz has been the former head, Department of English, former vice principal, founder of Mustard Seeds Art Company, known for theatre arts and performance. I call upon Mrs. Ramola Antao. Ma'am Antao has been former head, Department of English, and distinguished alumna of the first batch of Dempo College in 1962. May I call upon Dr. Neha Kalvatkar. Madam Kalvatkar has been the former head, Department of Chemistry, and has been an influential member of Board of Studies of Chemistry. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. May I request you to kindly take your place on the dais. Thank you. May I now request Vice Principal Madam Manjari Barve to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Respected Chief Guest of today's function, Shri Jayant Sinha, Honorable Member of Parliament, Government of India, respected Chairman of Dempo Charities Trust, Shri Srinivas Dempo Sir, Trustee, Madam Pallavi Dempo, Principal, Professor Vrinda Bolkar, Administrator, Shri Rajesh Bhatikar, all the dignitaries present in the auditorium. I'm here to present the vote of thanks for today's function, a great milestone for an educational institute that we have completed today. The online presence of the Honorable Member of Parliament, Shri Jayant Sinha, in today's program, in spite of his busy schedule, is very important to all of us present here. We are all inspired by your words, sir. On behalf of all present here, I would like to extend a very hearty vote of thanks for gracing the occasion in an online mode and sharing with this august audience the valedictory lecture. I would like to take this opportunity to express my hearty thanks to our inspiring chairman, Shri Dempo Sir, and trustee, Madam Pallavi Dempo, for your unstinted support and guidance you have extended to all of us at Dempo College of Arts and Science. I am extremely thankful to the members of the governing body, members of the Dempo family, and our administrator, Sir Rajesh Bhatikar, for your gracious presence in this function. I wish to express my gratitude to our principal, Madam Professor Vrinda Bolkar, for her guidance and support and for providing encouragement at every point of time in the organization of this event. I also extend my respectful thanks to the retired staff, representatives of the PTA, Alumni Association, and all our guest invitees who have come from different destinations to grace the function. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation to the media persons, both print and electronic, especially the RDXGOA and Goa 365 for giving an excellent coverage and live streaming of the program. Thanks to the management of Club Gaspardaz for making these premises available to us, air-based decorators for sound system and the decor of this auditorium, and Cat Pro for the refreshments. I'm also very grateful to all my colleagues who have worked tirelessly to make this event a big success. Thank you once again, one and all of you. Thank you. Have a great day.